Singapore, once troubled by densely populated colonies and severe housing shortages, is today recognized as a global leader in housing development and urban planning. What amazes the world is that Singapore isn't a big country, but a small island nation, covering just 728 square kilometers, roughly 0.9 times the size of New York City. Despite this limited area, it boasts one of the highest homeownership rates worldwide, around 89.7%. Stay with us to discover how this country resolved its housing issues. Since the British began settling in Singapore in 1819, it developed into a major trading hub. Due to its ideal location, a large number of people from China, India, and neighboring islands relocated there, rapidly increasing the town's population. However, the number of migrants greatly exceeded the rate at which housing infrastructure was developed, leading to congested and unhygienic living conditions that resulted in the spread of diseases like tuberculosis and cholera. The colonial government prioritized the construction of commercial districts and port infrastructure, neglecting the urgent need for housing. The situation worsened in 1945 following the end of World War II. Numerous structures were damaged during the war, and returning soldiers struggled to find suitable housing. As a result, they began building temporary wooden homes on undeveloped land, but these homes were overcrowded and lacked basic amenities like clean water and sanitation. To address this crisis, the Housing and Development Board, or HDB, was established in 1960 by Singapore's first Prime Minister, Lee Kuan Yew, and his party as the legislative body responsible for public housing in Singapore. The HDB's stated goal was to provide Singaporeans with access to high-quality, reasonably priced housing. This marked the beginning of a new chapter in Singapore's housing development history. A turning point for Singapore's public housing came when a severe fire completely destroyed the squatter town of Bukit Ho Swee on May 25, 1961, burning 400,000 square meters. 4 people died and over 16,000 were left homeless as a result. However, this tragedy also served as a catalyst for improvement. The public gained confidence in the government's swift response, which included providing shelter for all fire victims within a year and constructing new homes on the site within 5 years. By 1965, 5 years after its formation, the HDB had constructed more than 51,000 apartments, housing about 400,000 people, roughly a quarter of the total population at the time. This remarkable achievement established the HDB as a strong and effective organization. In its early years, the organization faced numerous challenges, including limited funds, a shortage of skilled workers, and the urgent need to relocate a large population. Despite these obstacles, the HDB remained committed to transforming Singapore's housing market. Today, more than 80% of Singaporeans reside in HDB apartments, of which about 90% are owned. But why has the HDB been such a groundbreaking success? The HDB was required to carry out 3 main tasks. First, to locate and acquire land from various sources, including both public and private landowners. Second, to develop residential structures on the acquired land to accommodate people across different income groups. And third, to maintain and manage these residential buildings. To make the most of Singapore's limited land, the HDB developed a strategy involving the construction of high-rise buildings, which have now become a symbol of public housing in Singapore. What made the HDB truly innovative was its focus on building self-contained towns, sometimes referred to as HDB towns. These towns had multiple services within walking distance, including markets, schools, and healthcare facilities. Furthermore, the bus networks in these towns are well connected, facilitating travel to and from work, school, and other locations throughout Singapore without the need for private vehicles. The government also introduced a model in which it constructed houses and then sold or rented them to citizens at reduced prices. This strategy ensured that most Singaporeans, regardless of income level, could afford homes. Apartments were built in different sizes, ranging from 1-room to 5-room flats. Applying for homeownership has never been easier in any other country. However, Singapore did something exceptional. The Central Provident Fund, or CPF, a mandatory savings program for Singaporeans, plays a key role in the country's successful housing strategy. Using CPF savings to purchase apartments makes homeownership more affordable. To further reduce the financial burden on homeowners, the government launched various loan programs and discounts. These policies have contributed to high homeownership rates, even among low-income populations. To keep housing costs affordable for most Singaporeans, the HDB regularly reviews the prices of its apartments, using incentives, subsidies, and price controls. It's important to note that Singapore uses a long-term lease model in which purchasers of HDB flats obtain a 99-year government lease. While technically residents do not own these houses outright, they still enjoy exclusive rights to occupy and utilize their flats for the duration of the lease. When the 99-year lease expires, the property is returned to the government for redevelopment to meet Singapore's growing social and economic needs. These redeveloped apartments are reconstructed into modern HDB flats for future Singaporeans. Given the scarcity of land in Singapore, the lease model helps keep property prices in check for future homebuyers. A Singaporean can buy an HDB flat in two ways. Number 1, build-to-order BTO flats. Under this model, buyers select from a range of future housing projects and apply for the apartments that best match their needs and price range. These apartments are directly bought from the government at discounted rates, but buyers must meet specific income and citizenship requirements. Additionally, the waiting period for these apartments may last anywhere from 2 to 7 years. Buyers of BTO apartments must also comply with a 5-year minimum occupancy period, meaning they cannot sell or rent their unit before that time. Number 2, resale market. Home buyers can also purchase an apartment from the resale market, but this option is generally more expensive as prices vary based on several factors, including size, location, floor level, and market conditions. There are fewer restrictions on purchasing these apartments. Permanent residents are also allowed to buy them from the resale market, and there is no minimum occupancy period if the buyer decides to sell or rent the apartment. While public housing was primarily provided by the HDB, Singapore's housing market also benefited from private development. Private developers were involved, particularly in constructing executive and higher-end residences to complement HDB's initiatives. Executive condominiums, or ECs, a hybrid housing type, were introduced to bridge the gap between public and private housing. ECs are more affordable than fully private developments because they are built and marketed by private developers, but come with government subsidies and restrictions. Singapore's housing strategy has been acknowledged by international organizations, including the World Bank and the United Nations. Its ability to build high-quality, affordable homes has made it a role model for other nations facing similar housing challenges. It's clear that this success story is the result of thoughtful and creative policy, not luck. If you liked this video, hit the subscribe button to stay in the loop with more amazing content.